Hey everyone, how's it going? Aaron Rift here from NoDQ.com. Welcome to the NoDQ panel. I am being joined by the usual panelists, good old JM Jeff Meacham, as well as the self-proclaimed greatest columnist in NoDQ.com history, Mr. Virtue. And our special guest today is a fellow reviewer, podcaster. His name is Good Mic Work, aka Greg. How's it going, man?
Awesome. Great to be here. Thanks a lot for having me.
Great to have you on. I'm looking forward to your insight with today's topic, which is the greatest match endings or greatest match finishes in wrestling history. I have compiled a huge list here. We'll try to get through as many of them as possible today, and I'll get your guys' thoughts and some of your all-time favorites. The first one I want to mention, I'll get this out of the way now, is WrestleMania 13. My all-time favorite match, Bret Hart, Steve Austin, the double heel turn. To me, that was done so well and such an epic moment in WWE history. Really, the beginning of the rise of Steve Austin. I've talked about it time and time again how great that was. How Bret Hart went from being the ultimate hero to the ultimate bad guy, and Steve Austin became the biggest babyface in the company, even though he was the ultimate bad guy prior to that. So, I mean, I think it was done so well. Jeff, what were your thoughts on that, and what's your all-time favorite?
Well, it's one of those things where I wasn't watching a whole lot during that time because of my grades being crappy and being grounded from the business. But I remember watching the replays on Raw and being able to see it on videotape later, and just the drama involved in that match between Austin and Bret. The whole feud was dramatic driven. It was drama driven. It was very intense, very passionate from both men. And seeing that moment in time where you knew for sure that Bret was definitely going down the path of the dark side. You knew that Bret had been the hero all these years, and all of a sudden this monumental shift in his character had occurred. And at the same time, Steve Austin, while not embracing the true nature of being a baby face, became kind of like the anti-hero. And I think people wanted to cheer him anyway, and they were cheering him anyway, and now Vince gave him a reason to. And I think, Virtue, you'll agree with that.
What I remember the most about that, and it's the intricacies of the camera work. If that did not have Steve Austin's blood, it wouldn't have, to me, has been as memorable. The trickling of the blood onto the mat, the master of the sharpshooter, even though I liked Owen's version a little bit better, which was the opposite. It was perfection. And to be honest with you, I kind of stopped watching WWE leading into that a little bit. I was all WCW, NWO. That match was one of the main reasons that kept me hooked to WWE again, because I was like, Bret Hart, what are you doing? And to be honest with you, I didn't know that was going to make Steve Austin, obviously, until later on. But looking back at it now, that's a fun match to go back and watch. How many matches like do you guys have that you actually like going back and watching just to see the story, not necessarily the actual match work? I'm going to pass it to you, good Mike. Can I call you GM Dub?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. I'm going to pass it to you because I guess
Chant
what I'm
it
asking
if you like.
is we all go back to watch matches, but I like to go back and watch the story of the match. Then you know it was an all-time great. So, like, what do you think about not necessarily just the work of the match itself, but the story that it told?
I agree with you about the blood part, because without that, there's a couple things. The blood was a big one. I also like the end when Austin walked to the back and the camera just followed him. And Vince McMahon in a somber tones, kind of like, can you imagine this motherfucker didn't even submit no matter what? You know, he passed out. He would rather pass out than give up to this guy. And he'll walk to the back and take his pride with him. I'll always remember that line. And the blood was a big thing because Austin tweaked his knee in your house a month before. So this match could have sucked ass. And you saw they were all out in the crowd. Without that finish, I don't think the story would have been told as well as it was. Just all that blood and, like you said, on the mat and the way it's squirting out of his head. The announce work, everything about that, the camera angles, and then the ending where it was all about Steve instead of Bret, who won the match, I thought just really helped and put him over huge. And I was watching hard. I was balls to the wall at that time. I see Jeff said you were kind of on the shelf with wrestling. You were more WCW, but I was watching a full blown. And Bret did that heel turn the week before on Raw, cussed and bullshit and all that stuff in a cage match with Sid, and then it boiled over here and culminated at WrestleMania. So. Yep. It was awesome. One of my favorite matches ever.
Well, it's funny you mentioned the mic work of that match. I've noticed over the years, and I really noticed it with the Tyler Bate Pete Dunne match a few months ago at the SmackDown pay-per-view weekend, whatever it was, the Takeover, whatever it was. The mic work from JR and Nigel really solidified that entire match. I think, the match like this, where it was already going to be an instant classic anyway, the combination of Vince's dramatics, JR's analysis, and the King's just over the top being the King really helped this match out. Aaron, what do you think?
Well, definitely. We talk about the visual of Austin bleeding. There's two matches I want to bring up now that tie into WrestleMania 13 and what you guys were just talking about. The first one is, we'll stick in 97, stay in 97 for now, the Hell in the Cell match, the very first one, with Kane making his debut, and the commentary, Vince's reaction to Kane. It's got to be Kane. I mean, that is something we all remember, something we never forget, and in my opinion, one of the best debuts in the history of WWE. I mean, that was just one of the most amazing moments. I mean, that one to me was a top finish, even though it was interference and all that. But the thing is, it was such a anticipated debut. It was something that was built up for a long period of time, and then Kane breaking the door and coming in and tombstoning Kane, and Shawn, who's covered in blood, putting one arm over the Undertaker to win the match after getting his ass kicked the entire time.
Just the slow, dramatic crawl into the finish. It was just like, ah!
I mean, to me, it was completely unforgettable. And then the other one I want to mention is Hogan and Andre from WrestleMania 3 with the body slam heard around the world. I mean, that, to me, right up there with Austin bleeding, is one of the most iconic WrestleMania moments of all time. So that finish,
I was there.
You were?
Oh.
Wow.
Yeah, I was born in Pontiac, Michigan.
Nice.
And I went to WrestleMania 3. I was 10.
That's awesome.
And it was.
Am I turning green? Am I turning green out of curiosity, just for the jealousy? I'm just curious.
No, not yet.
I was way up there, though. I was way up at the top, but I saw it.
I got to get your thoughts on that then.
Man.
Okay, go ahead.
It's the body slam. I will say this was probably better on TV just because of the camera angle. When you're watching it up there, I vaguely remember the reaction. I mean, the crowd popped, obviously, and it went nuts, but I think it would have been cooler to be a little bit closer on the floor. They did. I'm trying to remember what angle they had the big screens on when the body slam hit, but by then it was so crazy. I mean, I just sat through Steamboat and Savage and everything, so the show was already awesome. But the body slam, I remember the next day. That's what most people talk about, that in the IC title match. But I was a kid. I was there with my dad, and we were way up there. And I do know that the body slam happened. I remember seeing it on the screen. But the pop was kind of hard to describe because I don't really remember how nuts the audience went. It seemed like the audience was loud for the whole show, for the most part.
Well, it's funny you mentioned being like way up there and not being able to see a lot. I've been told, and I definitely feel the same way, when you go to a big stadium for WrestleMania or any kind of arena for WrestleMania, it's more about being at WrestleMania. It's more about the idea that you're at a WrestleMania. You get to experience what people have talked about for all these years you've been a fan. My first one in Anaheim in 2000 was arguably one of the worst WrestleManias ever. It was a horrible card, horrible show from start to finish. Not one single regular singles match all night. But the ambiance of WrestleMania is what did it for me. Now, when I went to WrestleMania 24, that was an awesome show for the most part. And again, the ambiance of 70-something thousand people was cool. I got to say, you talk about iconic moments. Aaron mentioned both of them. The Hell in the Cell debut of Kane. And you totally called it. And Vince's commentary, that's gotta be Kane. Just Vince. I miss Vince as a commentator so much because he was so just over the top dramatic. It was just so funny to hear him sell everything like a babyface. It was great.
And Jeff, what was the magic of Kane debuting? Who came out? Who walked out with him right there?
Percy, of course, Paul Bearer.
And it was a changing of Paul Bearer. He changed his character, if you notice, from the actual Paul Bearer with the dark eyes into the red hair. That was phenomenal.
He had shifted toward that after he had been burned at In Your House, Revenge of Taker. He had been evolving toward that, but when he walked out there and told the Undertaker that his brother was still alive all those months, and then when he walked out there in St. Louis with Kane by his side or behind him, whatever it was an amazing shift in the Undertaker character overall. And the story of the Undertaker, which people had thought was going to be stale and played out 20 years ago, became one of the most dynamic stories in history. But my goodness, the iconic moment of Hulk Hogan slamming Andre the Giant, remember, that match was not the greatest match in wrestling history. It was actually, quite frankly, a pretty crappy match.
It was horrible.
It was a horrible match. When you talk about the same card as Steamboat Savage, you go, wow, which was the main event again? But the moment is what made WrestleMania 3. Not the match, but the moment of Hogan toppling the 15-year undefeated streak and slamming the Giant. The slam heard around the world. That's what made WrestleMania what WrestleMania is today, I think.
They made you think that you'd never seen it before. Even though Andre had been slammed a bunch of times, I'd seen him been slammed a bunch of times, but I still thought that was the most incredible feat of strength I had ever seen. Just the visual of Hogan with that giant moose in his hands and slamming him down.
Well, because if you ask Hogan, Andre weighed like 3,000 pounds when he slammed him. So, that's why it's iconic.
Yeah.
Remember, Hulk broke his back doing that, remember?
tore his lat muscles, brother.
Yep.
Yeah. I want to go talk just really quick. I remember the Hell in the Cell with the Taker and Shawn bleeding again. That I wish they could bring that back more. And yeah, we've seen some blood, but they tried not to do that. And to be honest with you, that adds so much more, especially to a lot of these match finishes. Because when you see the guy looking up and his crimson mask, and you see the vibrant blue or green eyes, whatever color their eyes are, it just gives you so much more of a feeling that you watched something that maybe was legit. Because we're supposed to suspend our disbelief with this stuff. Now, when I was a kid, I suspended my disbelief when I saw that body slam. And I'm not shy of saying I always wanted the other guy to beat Hogan, so I was pulling for Andre. But as a 7-year-old kid watching this, what was it? We went to it was like a theater. We went and watched it at closed circuit.
Closed circuit, baby.
So
absolutely.
I was scared of Andre at 7 years old because I was like, he's a monster. But it was a great moment. I mean, it's weird. 30 years later, you remember when something like that happened, and two of us have. So that's iconic.
Well, Aaron, let me ask you a question since you brought up Hogan and Andre from WrestleMania 3. What do you guys think of the finish of the main event from the year later?
Yes.
With the whole heel referee and Andre getting the pinfall, even though he really did, and then DiBiase being sold the title. That is just, for me, for me as a Hulkamaniac, that's like, huh?
Yeah.
What happened?
Yeah, Earl and Dave Hebner.
It was amazing storytelling.
Yeah, Earl and Dave Hebner. I mean, that was just the best way to utilize them by doing that evil twin referee deal. I have that here in my notes. Absolutely, that was a great finish to have Andre win the title, and then Ted DiBiase becomes the new champion, and then of course it's stripped, and that leads up to WrestleMania 4. But very memorable angle they did there, and from what I recall, it was one of the highest rated. Maybe it still holds the record as the most watched televised wrestling match.
Pretty sure it is.
Yeah,
it is still the most watched single wrestling televised program in the history of the business. Yeah. Still, and it's been almost 30 years since that. So
I have the original broadcast still on VHS from that night.
That's fantastic,
complete with commercials and everything. I taped everything back then, and
I know Aaron's gonna move. Aaron's going to move on, but while we're still back there, the WrestleMania 3, the Savage and Steamboat finish. The classic wrestling, which is what everybody likes today, believe it or not. Back then everyone liked the Hogan and the Andre style matches. Today everybody likes the wrestling, and that was a fantastic finish. Steamboat winning the title, I loved it.
Think about if they would have had those guys rematch at WrestleMania 4. That was my biggest regret, is Savage and Steamboat didn't come head to head in the tournament.
Well, let me ask you guys a question, because that match was one of the best matches ever, but the finish was a roll up. Is that really a fantastic finish?
Well, small
or is that just a great match?
Because you're expecting an elbow or you're expecting a splash. I guess sometimes on something simple like that. Today when you get a roll-up, people are like, that's how you did the finish. But then I think it was innovative. I think to have that battle going back and forth and you're expecting someone to pull off their finish and that's how it ends. Yeah. And the baby wins that way. If it was Macho winning that way and Dirty Tactics, pulling the trunks, maybe not so much. The fact that Steamboat got the win, that's why I thought it was memorable.
Keep in mind that George Steele was part of the finish, too, knocking Savage off the top.
Right.
Yep. And that was getting revenge for all the hell that Savage put him through that past year.
They may have been building for a rematch back then because Steamboat left right after that. Then unexpectedly dropped the belt to Honky. So maybe they wanted to have Steamboat just eke out a win so they could do a rematch down the line a few months later, and maybe even Savage regains it. But Steamboat left.
And back then, they never
Right.
really did face versus face matches either. But yeah, that was really unfortunate that Steamboat and Savage did not face off in the tournament when they had that opportunity. But Steamboat was already on
Savage
his
could have got
way
the
out.
win back, and he's about to win the belt, and he could have, righted a wrong from the year before. It just would have been, it would have helped him, I think, even that much more in the end when he won the belt.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anyways, Jeff, I wanted to ask you about WrestleMania 24 since you were there. We're talking about shows that we were at in person. Ric Flair and Shawn Michaels and Ric Flair's retirement match. Your thoughts on that?
Well, it's one of those things where I look back now. It's been almost 10 years since that match happened, which just boggles my mind that my son's almost 10 years old. But because he was born, we came home from Florida Tuesday. He was born Friday. That's how WrestleMania 24 really stands out to me. I remember doing Talk Wrestling with you right after that. It was just a weird thing. But the emotion, because everybody knew, like we all knew it was going to be Ric's last match. We all knew Nate was going out. He was going on a high note at WrestleMania. But the drama of the entire match, and we didn't know what Shawn had said when he laid the kick down. And then they showed the replays on the big screen. You hear him, you see him mouth, "I love you." It was like, oh my God.
You know what made that even better though? After the kick, after the 1, 2, 3, Michaels put his head over Rick's, and he was clearly saying something into his ear. And I don't know if that ever came out exactly what he said, but that was the moment.
Immediately when the match was over, he embraced him like that.
He turned over out of the pin and got this big old hug around his head. I think Shawn had said that, he told him he loved him. Rick told him he loved him back. It was one of those things where, nothing can live up to the hype of retiring Ric Flair, but that came damn close. It was just an amazing match on a card where nothing was really horrible. Belfast Brawl, maybe. But that match, more so than the title matches, it even outshined the man himself, Money Mayweather, which is hard to do. But that match stands out as one of the greatest matches, I think, of all time. And Ric Flair, at whatever he was, 105 years old by then, still pulled off one of the greatest matches he's ever pulled off. It was awesome.
108 he was.
108, yeah, 108.
Yeah.
So,
and you had something like, you had tens of thousands of adult men crying.
Yeah.
Dude, my dad does not cry over wrestling. And I looked to my left, and he had a tear in his eye. He was, like, caught up in it.
Yeah. What about Shawn's retirement 2 years later?
Yeah, that's definitely one.
Well, see, what's funny is, it's funny. When they set up these retirement matches at WrestleMania and the guys are it's going to happen. But even still, you get caught up in it. It was like down the line when the streak was on the line all the time. Once Shawn got to WrestleMania 25 with Undertaker, every year after that, you wondered, is the streak going to end? And you got caught up in the streak. Even when Shawn was going to retire, and you knew he was going to retire, but you made yourself believe that maybe, just maybe, he can go out with one more big win and take out the streak once and for all. That was pure dramatics, pure awesomeness, as Christian would say. And it was just very well told, very well done. Most of the Shawn Michaels matches you're going to see finishes of WrestleMania are should be on this list. People are not going to bring this up, and that's fine. I'll bring it up. The finish between him and Austin at 14. That was one of those things where it wasn't the greatest match of all time. It wasn't even the greatest finish of all time. But the fact that they got to that point in Shawn's condition makes it awesome, I think.
Yes. Yep. We've talked about that before.
Yes,
and
we have.
When you look at it from a behind-the-curtain standpoint, knowing, how pro wrestling is just two guys going out there trying to work, it was awesome because Shawn's back was lit up, and we didn't see him for 4 years after that. So that made it, had I known I wasn't going to see him for 4 years back when I was in high school watching that, I would have probably been more crushed watching that happen.
It hurts me watching that match. Just that you can see the pain that he's in. It's insane. His wincing and everything. So for all his attitude problems, he showed up that night. He got it done.
Yeah, and you know what? Full circle, because he got to that where he retired Ric Flair, and then he had this couple of matches against Undertaker at the back-to-back after that. And the way he went out against Taker, it really completed the story of Shawn Michaels' career. And it's become a normal thing now after these matches like that. The walk back up the ramp, the fans showing the respect. That same thing happened with Undertaker. I'm hoping he's not coming back, but we don't know on that yet. But it creates the fans are there showing their support. You go to WrestleMania when you watch a match like that, and you know what's probably going to happen. but the fact that you're getting to see these guys' last match live, that's what's awesome about it. That's why these are great finishes.
And that's the thing. And we've brought up Ric Flair retiring and then going to TNA or whatnot. But for me, like Aaron has pointed out to me, it doesn't tarnish the legacy of Ric Flair's WWE, WCW, NWA career because it's a totally different animal. And I literally, every time I watch that match, every time I watch Raw the next night, every time I watch his Hall of Fame speech, I cry. No, like ugly, nasty girl cry. No shame.
Yeah, and that match with Undertaker with Shawn refusing to stay down and Undertaker having to do the jumping tombstone to finally finish him off.
Wow, yeah.
That was a great one.
I mean, it's funny. Shawn slaps him, and Undertaker just gets this pure rage face. Like, he is legitimately just like, no, screw you. Boom, over. That's it.
Shawn's had so many good ones. I'll list a couple here and get your guys' thoughts. The SummerSlam 97 one with Bret Hart versus The Undertaker. Shawn is the special guest referee, and Shawn with the steel chair and spitting in Bret Hart's face and all that stuff. No, I was actually, what was it? It was Bret spitting in Shawn's face.
Yeah. Bret spit at Shawn. He was supposed to hit him in the chest just to kind of get the seed planted, but it was so congealed in his mouth that Flip hit him right in the eyes and just legitimately pissed Shawn off.
And then Shawn walloped.
When Shawn swung that chair, he was like, no, F this. Boom.
Yeah.
Even as a referee, Shawn has great finishes. The Iron Man match with Rock and Triple H.
Yes.
He was a ref in that, wasn't he? And that was an awesome ending, So
yeah,
even
that's
as a referee,
where they kind of botched that. That was kind of botched with the timer and everything. But I mean,
it was.
The crowd went so crazy for Undertaker coming out there and destroying everybody. So it was still very entertaining.
It's very rare, even with WWE's wonderful editing, that JR and the King get drowned out. You can barely hear Ross and Lawler when Undertaker comes out. People went completely bat crazy. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
And what about the end of an era? Taker and Triple H with Shawn as the referee.
Yeah, there you go.
Again, bringing up that point. Bringing up that point of no matter what Shawn was involved with, great finish.
I'm going to ask Greg this because he hasn't been on the panel yet. Do you believe that should have been the final outing for Undertaker and Triple H and Shawn Michaels as well?
All three of them?
Yes.
It would have been nice, but no. I think maybe Taker, but I think Triple H had another couple matches left in him, and I don't know. There's still attractions. It would have been nice. I mean, the way it ended, it sure felt that way. You were like, shit, is this going to be it?
Well, because end of an era should be the end of those two guys' era, their run in WWE.
Yeah, they're big enough stars, though. You got to separate those retirements. You can't do them at the same night.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But they did the once in a lifetime with Rock and Cena, and then did it again the next year.
Right.
So they only lived those taglines for that year, and then they don't mean anything after that.
But you know what? I will give Rock and Cena credit. They built up that match for an entire year, and the finish, while a lot of people crapped on it because Cena basically beat himself, it was still a cool finish because Cena had to went to people's elbow and got all cocky, and then Rock just drilled him. Yeah. It was a cool finish, I thought.
I agree on that. I think it was a good finish. A couple other Shawn ones I wanted to mention. The Gold Rush match from 2005 with Shelton Benjamin and Shawn Michaels, with Shelton Benjamin jumping off the ropes and then eating the super kick. I mean, that's one of the all-time greats. I mean, they put it in the Raw video package for like 4 years, and rightfully so.
Yeah, yep.
Are there any other ones, Greg, any other Shawn moments or any other moments that are off the top of your head you would like to bring up here?
Shawn-wise, Jesus.
Let me count the ways.
Yeah. Well, in defeat, I liked the WrestleMania 10 ladder match. He got himself all hung up in the ropes, and he couldn't quite get back to Razor or whatever. One.
Oh, what about Survivor Series 2007, Shawn Michaels versus Randy Orton, where the super kick was banned, and Shawn was going for the super kick, and he just hesitated, and that one split second of hesitation cost them the match, and Orton hit the RKO for the win.
Yep.
I thought that was really well done, very clever, without having to do like a wild stipulation with weapons or whatever. They just kept it in the ring. I thought it was great.
Yeah.
What about WrestleMania 12, Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart?
Yes, the boyhood dream coming true.
And I'll go and say, well, go ahead. Jeff.
The entire story of that made that match, and the overtime, the drama of overtime. And Shawn hit the kick one time, he didn't get all of it, and then he backed up and did the first time he did the Sweet Chin music, and he got all of it. Michaels, he got all of it, and he got the 3 count. It was what made it kind of crappy was the fact you can see him telling Earl, get Bret out of the ring. This is my moment. It was like, not cool.
Yeah.
WrestleMania 19, it ended in a roll-up. Michaels beats Jericho, but then after the match, Jericho embraces him and kicks or knees him in the nuts.
Oh,
That was
just pure, like, total groaner, like, oh, Chris, no.
Do that.
Yeah,
We were also happy.
those are my two boys, so like I'm gonna remember that one. You
Like,
know,
damn you, Jericho, you son of a, oh
And
no.
how about the '95 Royal Rumble with Shawn Michaels and the 1 foot?
Yes.
That's
That
one of
was-
my all-time favorites right there.
only Shawn could have pulled that off.
Exactly.
I mean,
He
Shawn-
did.
Although we've seen Kofi Kingston, John Morrison do some crazy Rumble stuff since then, so you
Yeah,
know.
that's true.
but that was the finish with Shawn and the 1
Yeah,
foot.
that was the finish, exactly. Yeah.
All right, I got an elephant in the room, and maybe I'm overlooking at this one. Taker Lesnar, WrestleMania.
Yeah.
Oh, the
Taker
finish.
The streak,
the
yeah.
the end of the streak. I mean, we didn't think it was ending, right?
Most shocking.
Fair,
People were
and
legit
it's-
shocked in the
and-
crowd. Yeah.
I know it's an awesome finish. It's more of a shocking finish, like, because it's an awesome story to tell in that nobody, even the people that are staunch Lesnar guys like Paul Heyman, I mean, you could tell that. I don't know if Paul knew or not, but even if Paul knew or not, his reaction is what told that story.
Yeah.
He looked legitimately like, oh my God, he just lost. Like, oh my God. He couldn't believe it.
And the shocked fan, of course.
Wasn't Taker pretty beat up after that match?
Well, he ended up going through the curtain and falling down and going to the hospital with a serious concussion. Vince
See,
went
if
to
that
the
was
hospital.
part of where you got to see that, they had a camera backstage and you saw that, and that was part of the whole finish sequence, then I think we're definitely putting this up there as one of the top all time because of that part.
Well, because they aired that on WrestleMania WWE 24. They showed that.
Yeah.
So
Maybe that's what I'm remembering about it. That's why maybe
Right.
I had it on my list, because I'm looking at that part of it.
Well, I mean, because the overall finish was really cool because it took 3 F5s and just a severe beatdown to get the job done. But you look back, and I don't know if it's the finish itself is awesome or if it's just so mind-boggling that it even happened.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest part. The shock, the way the fans stood up and gasped, coming out of the crowd is like, oh, holy shit. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can hear the air escape from however many thousands of people.
Yeah.
And Greg was talking about earlier, with that end of an era, if they had all retired, then we would have never have gone WrestleMania 30 and the finish with Daniel Bryan winning the world title. So, that was a big one right there, WrestleMania 30. And I'll add on top of that, WrestleMania 20 with the man who we cannot mention his name, Chris Benoit. We'll go ahead and say it because we can. Chris Benoit winning the world title, him and Eddie Guerrero embracing as world champions. Definitely one of the all-time classic WrestleMania moments that unfortunately will be ignored in history.
It's a shame.
Well,
But we don't have to ignore it, though.
We won't,
Here's a
but
I don't think
WWE
or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me ask the group on Moss, because it's a really touchy thing to ask, so I'm going to go ahead and throw it out there. If the two of them had not passed away, however they passed away, do you think we look back on that moment now and go, it was as great as we think it is?
Sure, I do.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I do. I was just throwing it out there because I thought people go, well, people look back now because they're both gone. It's like, no. That
The
moment,
only
where
way,
two best
Jeff,
friends.
There would have been maybe more matches these guys could have had against each other, against other big names, where we might have liked those matches better, and the WrestleMania 20 matches would have got overshadowed. That would have been the only way, maybe.
Well, because remember, what was their last great match for the two of them together? It was One Night Stand 2005. That was both of their last really unbelievable matches. Benoit had some stuff with MVP that when it was okay, but their last great match, both of them, was against each other at One Night Stand 2005. So.
Yeah, and they were pushing 40 by that point too. So
exactly.
they were.
I'm not discounting either of their legacy. Well, Benoit's legacy is not good now, but at the time they were in the ring, we knew how great they both were, and the fact that they both achieved the pinnacle of WWE superstars of being the champion on their own brand was something that I will forever remember. Whatever happened to them after, it was such a great, heartstring tugging moment. It was so cool.
Yeah, they would have never got that in WCW. So.
Yeah.
No
Greg,
way.
Thank you for mentioning WCW because I actually wanted to transition into that. So
Segues are beautiful.
Yes, it is. I did want to bring up a couple of WCW ones. I have a list here about 4 or 5 of them. Hogan joining the NWO, Bash at the Beach, of course. That was a big finish, even though it was technically a non-finish. It was still a big ending and a very significant turning point in wrestling. Lex Luger winning the world title from Hogan on Nitro, the first 3-hour Nitro. I mean, the pop
In
for
Detroit,
that was
yep.
unreal.
That was probably Lex's big defining moment right there. And you thought
It
he would have
really
had a
was.
lot more. He would have had a lot more, but he didn't. But I'll give him that one.
Well, I mean, Hogan was champion for about a year, so that was quite the moment there for Luger to finally end Hogan's reign of terror for a week.
But come on, Aaron, what's the bigger one in WCW? Go ahead. I know that's what you're saying.
Hogan putting over Goldberg in the Georgia Dome. The
Yep.
pop for that.
It's so funny because we look back now and we think about what finishes, what matches defined WCW. What's funny is they both involve either Goldberg or Hogan, or they all involve either Goldberg or Hogan. Hogan Goldberg, Goldberg Nash, Hogan Sting from Starrcade. Now, granted, Goldberg and Nash wasn't the greatest finish, but it was still a poignant match and an awesome finish because of the way it played out. Hogan Sting, not a good finish, not so much. I'll concede that because it was a horrible. They botched the finish completely. But Hogan and Goldberg, you got 40,000 people against Hogan. That's what that match was. It was everybody in that arena and Billy Boy against Hollywood Hogan.
I remember Bobby Heenan too. He did great.
Yes, he did.
You know what? People look back now and
who was
they
the
remember
announce team for that? Was it
Shivani?
Shivani?
It was Shivani, Tenay, and Bobby, which at the time they were doing well as an announce team in '98. It was in '99 when they started NWO Elite that those three and Zbyszko with the other two. It was bad, but yeah, the dramatics of Goldberg and Hogan was, I think, the most defining moment in the history of WCW matches.
Yeah, I mean, Heenan's like, thank you. He's so emotional when Goldberg won the title. I love it. That was great. Heenan really deserves credit for that.
Well, it's funny. Heenan, throughout his entire run, AWA, WWE, WCW, the character always hated Hogan.
Yes.
So
that's why
cool to see.
You know, people are critical about Bash at the Beach when Heenan said Hogan's the third man. Is he the third man? You know, some people were saying he was giving it away, but the thing is that was in line with Heenan's character. He always hated Hogan and never trusted Hogan. So that is something Heenan would say, that he would think he always thinks Hogan's up to no good.
Well, what's funny is unless you have the original VHS or maybe DVD copy of Bash at the Beach from that year, WWE edits out Bobby's call there.
They do?
Yeah, go on the network, go on the NWO Revolution broadcast. They edit out Bobby saying, "Is he the third man?" Even on the NWO DVD, the Blu-ray,
really?
the Revolution. Yeah, go back and watch it.
I didn't know that. Wow.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of a split. I think he half spoiled it, half didn't. I think Aaron's right. You know, that's what Bobby Heenan would do. He hates Hogan, but at the same time, don't fucking do that. You know, God. You know, I wanted to be a little bit more surprised, but whatever.
Well,
Bobby,
it's funny. I
remember
remember watching that and going, when Bobby said that, I went, no way. And then Hogan tore the shirt off, kind of stood there for a second. I went, oh, he's going to turn.
Yeah.
He's going to turn.
Because who else is going to run out? Then it's 4-on-2. Like, it didn't even make sense.
Right, exactly.
There was supposed to be a third man coming, so he comes down. So what Bobby said made perfect sense, but you know, like I was like, oh, maybe he did spoil it for some people, but whatever.
Maybe.
Well, if anything, it was the look in Hogan's eyes when he was walking out to the ring. He did not look like his usual self, like his usual Hulkamania self. I suspected
in the 80s,
something.
He'd be doing this, like blowing his mouth and
he just had like this.
Savage on
he had this different look, like the bad Hogan was already there. Yeah, you know, he wasn't pretending to be the good Hogan.
He looked like he was ready to for a monumental shift in his career, and he was.
Yeah.
Hey, you might have some more WCW ones, Aaron, but I don't want to forget this guy. Well, you know, let's finish them first. But before we end the video, I got 2 matches back in WWE I want to talk about.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to mention Ric Flair winning control of WCW. I think it was the last Nitro in '98. Yeah, it was a week before the Georgia Dome. Randy Savage coming out and low blowing the Giant, and then Flair winning control of WCW. What a great moment that was. What a great storyline that was between Flair and Bischoff. Unfortunately, everything started going to shit in '99, but At the end of '98, I mean, that was one of the best endings to Nitro, in my own personal opinion. We'll go ahead and list off a couple more here, Virtue, and then Greg, if you have any more, go ahead and mention it. Virtue, you want to go ahead?
By no means were these great matches, but the feel of the arena after both of these matches tells the story that these finishes were great. The Ultimate Warrior beats Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania 6 for both, holding both titles up, and then a year later he retires Savage, and then him and Savage and Elizabeth reunite in the ring. I thought those were phenomenal finishes. I truly do. I was a Warrior fan as a kid too.
Well, see, it's funny. Even as a bad guy, I like Macho King more than Warrior. And seeing Macho hit whatever it was, 4 or 5 elbows and didn't get the pin, and then Warrior hit like 3 or 4 shoulder tackles, and then just put the foot on him, did the pose, and that was it. That was the pin. And that was one of those things where like I couldn't believe it. And then when Sherry started kicking Randy, and I knew Liz was there, even at whatever I was 8 years old, I went, she's gonna come down, and she hopped the rail and beat the crap out of Sherry and threw her out. And even as an 8-year-old kid, you don't really know what like crying for happy means, but I was like happy tears. It was awesome to see them back together. It was really cool.
That was probably the best example of happy tears in a WWE match. The stuff with Shawn and Flair was more sad than anything else.
Well, what bugs me about that whole Savage Liz thing in 1991? The fact that on the SummerSlam airing on the WWE Network, they edited out the song together.
Oh,
on the wedding. They have some generic song. I watched it.
They don't want to pay for that. Come on, how much could that cost?
They freaking wrote it.
Oh, they did? Yeah, well, then why the hell are they not paying?
I don't know, but I watched it during the SummerSlam countdown, whatever it was, a few months ago. I went, huh?
Weird.
Didn't they release that on a CD?
I think it's on Spotify. I think it's on Spotify.
So why would they not want to play it? It's on one of their fucking CDs.
I checked Spotify. It wasn't there when I checked.
Greg, any other ones you want to mention that we have not discussed yet that you can think of?
I know. Are you a New Japan fan by any means, or have you followed the big matches? There's been 3 huge matches over there this year that are talked about all over the internet. Do you think those are worthy of this discussion? And I will say, Okada versus Omega 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, they're definitely worth just. Oh, gee, I'm sorry, my cat is going apeshit. Get the fuck out.
Hey, actually, if you get the cat in the shot, that's ratings. People on my channel love the cat cameos.
He's fucking with my wires down here. He's gonna.
The reason why I bring those matches up, those matches are what the average wrestling fan, the niche indie wrestling fan wants today. And I think those are the bar now of what great finishes are supposed to be. Yeah, not that I still like old school stuff myself, but I just wanted your thoughts. Do you think those are worthy of this?
Yeah, for today, for sure. And that's just how finishes have evolved. You would never see anything like that in 91. I was going to bring up like Piper Bret at WrestleMania 8.
I love that one. Because
Piper had never been pinned before. And it was just he just countered the sleeper hold and pinned him. It wasn't anything extravagant like you see with Omega and those guys. So it's just a different time period.
But I'm glad you brought. I totally agree with you on that one. Because Piper with the ring bell acting like he's going to use it and hesitating. I love that.
Struggle.
I think that was great. And like you said, Piper never put over anybody. So to put over Bret Hart was a really big deal. And that's what really helped.
Yep. Bobby Heenan again. He had great calls in that match.
Yep.
You reminded me of that era, Wembley Stadium. What about Bulldog over Bret?
Yes, that's another great one.
That was a great match. The finish was kind of like one of those, kind of like the Steamboat Savage roll-up. It was like it wasn't expected, but it was a cool way to end it.
3 count was quick, too.
Yeah, it was a little quick.
Just like you brought up WrestleMania 14 earlier. One of the things I think hurt that finish, if Tyson just would have had a little bit better of a dramatic 3 count. He was 1, 2, 3. It was too fast, and Ross couldn't even keep up. Oh, Austin's a champion. If they had a little bit better of a 3 count. So sometimes the 3 counts can matter, and I think that Bulldog Bret match was one where I thought it was too quick.
Yep.
Well, that's a whole other topic. I mean, I've noticed in those earlier matches that the referees would typically count a lot faster. They've definitely slowed down in recent years. But again, that's a whole other topic. Let me see if there's a few other ones I can bring up. There's a couple with Randy Orton that I really liked. A couple of really memorable RKO finishes. Of course, the one with Evan Bourne.
I was going to bring it up when you mentioned the Gold Rush, and it totally slipped my mind because we got on their stuff. Yeah, that was incredible.
Yeah, what is the move? I'm spacing out here.
The airborne into the RKO.
That was the RKO.
Shooting star press, what you're trying to think of,
Yes.
I think. Shooting star press in the RKO. That was one of those where you never expect. You talk about RKO out of nowhere. That one was out of nowhere.
And then the WrestleMania 31 with Seth Rollins, I was at that one, going for the curb stomp, and then it turns into an RKO. That was great. I mean, everyone just went completely insane when that happened.
Seth hit the lights. He was way up there.
He got so much airtime. That was a beautiful finish. I loved it. And on the topic of WrestleMania 31. Seth cashing in Money in the Bank at the end. I have never left a wrestling show where there were more people happy than WrestleMania 31. Everyone was so satisfied with that. They did not want to see Roman Reigns leave that building with the title, so they were thrilled when Seth Rollins came out there and won the title. I mean, that was about as much of a happy ending as you could get for wrestling fans.
Well, it's funny. They weren't exactly wanting Lesnar to leave with the championship because they were kind of not sold on Brock because of Brock being a part-timer still. But they damn sure didn't want Roman to leave with the title. And then here comes Seth. We're watching the living room going, he's going to win the title.
Yeah.
It was awesome. It was great.
I mean,
but no one's giving Roman credit for taking a beating from Lesnar for 15 minutes.
Of course not. We're not going to give Roman credit for anything. It was a decent match. And Roman took a beating, and he took it like a man. No question about that. But that whole entire encounter was made by Seth Rollins cashing it.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Hey, you know what? I just thought of this one, and this is from a technicality standpoint. I don't know if it was maybe a great finish. Mr. Perfect went to do the leg drop into Bret Hart for the third time, right into his abdomen, and Bret locks his leg and flips it over into the sharpshooter. That was
SummerSlam 91, absolutely.
That was awesome. I mean, from a technicality move standpoint, that was a great finish.
Yeah, I agree on that. And the crowd just went nuts.
And once again, the commentary, Gorilla, Bobby, and Piper calling the end of that match. It was awesome.
Yeah, and Perfect was in that sharpshooter for about 1 second because his back was hurt. As soon as Bret put it in him, ref calls for the bell.
Yeah, because the referee knew he wouldn't be able to handle the sharpshooter for more than 2 seconds.
Bret didn't even get it in all the way. He was still trying to sit up, and Perfect's already given up.
The way he got into it was awesome, though.
Yeah,
maybe they had to come up with that because Perfect was hurt. And how can we do this where it can be dramatic because it took a little bit just to get it over. That was a great finish.
And that's probably Perfect because Bret could have easily beat him with a small package or something, but Perfect was probably like, no, beat me with your finish.
That was I guarantee that was a lot of Kurt. That was Kurt Hennig definitely going, you know what? I'm going out right now. You need to be made. Boom, there it is.
Yeah,
and we forget about his serious back injury and how much that meant during that match that he still did that performance like Shawn at WrestleMania 14.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We talk about Bret and the Harts at SummerSlam. We talk about Bulldog and what about the 1990 tag team match?
Yes.
It wasn't the greatest thing of all time, but the finish was cool. The Lord Warriors coming down. And
that's one of my favorite matches ever.
And then the drama, the Harts winning it back. It was definitely. It was before I started watching it officially, but I've gone back and watched it. That match had so much anticipation and so much build. It was really very well pulled off.
I love
the atmosphere was good. The Spectrum was a little smaller than the building they have now in Philly, so it was just a little more intimate. I remember Piper on commentary for that. The whole just feel of it had a lot of electricity and emotion, just a good feel. I watched it on pay-per-view that night. It was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, Bret was like Mr. SummerSlam. If Shawn was Mr. WrestleMania, Bret had all those classic SummerSlam moments.
Well, it's funny.
We
after
should mention
SummerSlam this year,
94 too with Owen, with Owen's foot.
Yeah, I was going to say I put up a collage after SummerSlam this year of the Harts' success in October, which Natty retweeted, by the way, and posted on Instagram. It was really cool. But yeah, the Harts have been the most dominant wrestling family in August, especially at SummerSlam. You talk about 1990, 91, 92, 94, 97, which you mentioned against Undertaker, and then the Hart Dynasty becoming tag team champions that year and becoming the undisputed tag team champions in August of 2010. And, of course, Natty winning against Naomi this year.
No love for Isaac Yankem in 95? Come on.
If Isaac Yankem... Speaking of 94, Aaron, when Owen beat Bret at WrestleMania 10, okay, that was great. But after the fact, at the end of the show, after Bret beat Yokozuna, Owen walking out and standing in the aisleway and just like, I'm better than you. That was a fantastic. To me, that's my favorite WrestleMania finish as it went off the air. Because
that was a great one, too.
To me, Owen should have got so much more after that.
Yeah.
I think that was the best end of WrestleMania going off the air moment until Rollins cashed in, I think.
Yeah, I'm trying
that's Rollins is definitely, but I mean, for me, I always go back to my childhood.
Yeah, because it was a cliffhanger instead of a finish or a culmination or whatever.
Right, exactly. Because you knew when Owen walked out there and was like, "That should be me." It's like, we're gonna keep going with this, baby. It's on now.
You know, we could do a 2-hour video. I mean, I can't stop talking.
I know.
I really can't.
Well, there are a couple more. You know, we do got to wrap this up. There are a couple more I wanted to bring up that are very important, so it would be bad if we forgot about them. Backlash 2000, when The Rock won the title from Triple H, with Steve Austin coming out there hitting everybody with the steel chairs. I mean, that pop was unreal for Austin coming out and Rock winning the title. And in similar fashion, about a year and a half earlier, when Mick Foley won the title from The Rock, with Steve Austin coming out there and again stopping the corporation. I mean, that was up against the Nitro at the Georgia Dome with the finger poke of doom, the infamous finger poke of doom. That was one of the biggest pops of all time.
What's funny is, you know, we've all analyzed that night over and over again. We knew what was going to happen that night, thanks to WWE.com, WWF.com, and all the different results sites and everything. We knew what was going to happen, but still, we all got caught up in the fact that our guy Mick Foley, Mankind, was going to win the WWF Championship. It was so cool.
That was a great time to do a spoiler, and Eric Bischoff even had an assist. Everybody's going to want to see Mick Foley do that. So like there is no spoilers keeping ratings down there.
Yeah, thanks for telling us, WCW. Appreciate it. We're going to go check that out.
Well, it's so funny. People were so eager to crap on Shivani. It's like, he's wearing a headpiece, guys. Keep that in mind. Yeah. So, but yeah, Aaron, you mentioned Austin coming back. Am I the only one that noticed that Austin hadn't quite worked out and got ring shape by that time? He had a little punch going there when he walked out there. I'm just throwing it out there.
I've heard Austin say he hated himself in that. I think he just because he was sitting down drinking beer for 6 months. You know, that's what happens.
Well, what's funny is by the time he came back in September, he was like, "Yep, there's Stone Cold. There we go. Now we're good."
Yeah. And
was that when he came back from neck surgery?
Yeah, he was still not recovered. He was only a couple months out of the surgery. But the last one I want to talk about today is Money in the Bank 2011, John Cena versus CM Punk. CM Punk winning the WWE Championship in Chicago and leaving Chicago with the WWE Championship. Unfortunately, I think the follow-up was not executed as well as it could have been done. But I think the actual finish with Punk winning in Chicago, I mean, definitely one of the all-time great WWE moments. Greg, your thoughts on that match and that finish?
Oh, loved it. Blowing the kiss to Vince and taking off through the crowd. It's funny how we started with Bret and Austin in Chicago, and we're finishing with the same that venue. The venues have a lot to do with it.
Same venue, absolutely.
Yeah. So that, and then the match was good, you know, and everything surrounding it. And the crowd helped because they were so pro Punk, and then him finally winning and leaving and throwing it in the freezer and tweeting a picture of it. It was great. It was great. So that was definitely up there.
Did you just say it's a good match? You said it's a good match. Well, it's a 5-star match, and
that's
believe
me. I meant great.
For Dave Meltzer to give a match in the United States 5 stars, it has to be damn good.
Yeah, he's only done it a couple times.
We had the Golden Era, we had the Attitude Era, and for all intents and purposes, from 2011 to, say, 14, we had the CM Punk and Daniel Bryan era. And that is why wrestling seems like it stinks today, because it's changed. Like, they didn't go, you know what I mean? Like, 2 guys that you didn't think would get to the main event got to the main event, and it's like Vince is trying to do a course correction and make it his way again. So CM Punk beating John Cena that night, even though he had been world champion, you know, when they had the 2 belts, this one meant so much more.
It's a shame that they didn't do more, because they kind of tried it with Benoit and Eddie. It was those 2 when they were champs at the same time. Now you're moving on to Daniel Bryan and CM Punk, and they still dropped the ball. But Bryan was injured, so.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, guys. Well, that'll wrap it up for this video. I would like to thank Good Mic Work once again for being on today.
Thank you.
Plugs. I know you got your own podcast going, so go ahead and tell the viewers about it.
Oh, yeah. Well, you can find me on YouTube. Just Good Mic Work. Search me. That's where most of my podcasts are. That's where my videos are. That's where most everybody sees me. But I have a website, goodmicworkcommentaries.com. I got the podcast download available there. I'm on iTunes. I'm on Stitcher. And on Twitter at Good Mic Work, and Facebook and all that stuff. So check me out.
All right. Thank you for being on. You can follow Jeff Meacham at _Jeff Meacham and Virtue at NoDQ_Virtue. And you can find me at Aaron Rift on all social media platforms, and of course NoDQ.com. And on that note, we will see you guys next time for another edition of the NoDQ panel. See you then.